High Stakes Fantasy Network. I'm your host, Greg and Brody. And you know who I'm here with tonight. That's right. None other than my best friend in the industry, Mr. Brady Tinker. Brady, welcome to my little show.
Well, it's nice to be here, friend, and I can't wait to see you. I'm sorry that my schedule has been so screwy and we haven't talked more. I see your pictures of the lake cabin and the semi-retired life, and I'm so happy for my friends since I'm working 2 jobs and about 80 hours a week, and I'm struggling to make ends meet, but I'm still happy, and I have 5 healthy kids, and I can't wait to see all my friends, and especially you in Las Vegas.
All right, so that leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
Everybody's asking me. I don't even know the answer. This is like the Rogers. Where's Rogers going? And we're waiting for Rogers to tell us. So,
Yeah.
are you coming to Las Vegas or not? I don't even know for
I
sure.
will be in Las Vegas Wednesday night,
All right.
Wednesday evening early. If anyone wants to have a drink, I'm so excited that I'm coming that I would love to do that with all my friends or anybody who just wants me to buy them a drink. I'll put it on Greg's room.
Of
And
course.
yes, I'll be there Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, do some things Sunday morning with you guys, and probably out about 3 on Sunday to get back to close a listing. I'm dabbling in real estate, and I
Yep.
might be okay at it.
Well, tell everybody, like you said, you're working 2 jobs. You're still doing some podcasting and stuff like that. You're a big shot Dallas realtor.
Mhm.
We know that right now. So talk about a little bit, but you've just been busy, busy, busy.
Yeah, the things turned and got tougher for all of us in the industry right around COVID. And then I was doing, regular radio shows on ESPN 103.3 here in Dallas, and that had nothing to do with COVID. But right about that time, ESPN's contract with Cumulus was up. Well, I was able to make a nice side living doing my radio shows. So if my podcast or my TV shows were struggling, I could always do okay because the radio shows were popular, right? I did a live Cowboys and a live Mavericks radio show for forever on site, and the players loved it, and it was popular. And all of a sudden, Cumulus and ESPN couldn't come to an agreement. ESPN, if you can imagine, in Dallas is no longer. There is
Wow.
not an ESPN Dallas radio station. If you can imagine that. The worldwide leader has no presence in Dallas. And that's where I'd been, 22 years. So struggle with one thing, all of a sudden radio's gone through it just happened. And so I've sort of been forced to look at some other things. It's hard, I mean, it would have been hard not to come see you this year. It's hard not to do radio and TV.
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend questions it. And I had a conversation with her last night, and I said, it's not about that I was a little bit famous in the Dallas area. It wasn't that. It was something I always wanted to do. I got very lucky. You were there at the beginning when I started. I got very lucky to get the job that I got, and I made good on it for 22 or 3 years. And it just was something that I felt like I was good at. And I really, really liked it. It came so easy to me, which I didn't know if it would. I was never afraid. I loved the studying. I loved the traveling. The older I got, the more important it was to me that I was making relationships in locker rooms. I would, that's how I got to the cowboy life stories, right? That was the best part, was L. Collins telling me about, when he was knocked out of the draft in Chicago right before the draft, he's going to be a first round pick. And he's someone who's a suspect. That's not right. He's an interested party in a former girlfriend of his that had been killed. And of course he hadn't done it. He's one of the gentlest men I ever met, but that was a great story. I'll just tell a little bit of that story, and if people want to find it, they can. So he had his agent tell everybody that year, because he was on his way. He was in Chicago when the police told all of us, he is a person of interest. We just want to talk to him. Boom. He's gone out of the first 5 rounds.
Yeah.
And he was going to be on stage. He was going to be a top 15 pick. Lyle Collins, number 71 for the Cowboys. So his agent put together a plan and told everybody, don't draft him if you're drafting him after the 3rd round. If you draft him in round 4, 5, 6, 7, he will not sign. And so that worked. And 5 or 6 teams called right after the draft. And Jerry was one of them. And Jerry got him on the phone and said, I'm flying you to Dallas tomorrow if you'll come. My plane is coming for you. I'll meet you at the airport. So he and his mom got on the airplane, flew to Dallas. They went to Jerry's house. And at the table, when he got there, was Romo and Witten and a couple of the offensive linemen, 6 or 7 players, and Jerry and Steven and Jason Garrett. And they all, during dinner and during a round table of drinks and wine, told Lael a story of hard times that they had run into in their lives,
Mhm.
right? Rome was an undrafted free agent. It all turned out great. He ended up getting $140 million. But, Witten and his siblings were abused terribly as children by their father. And his story, like so many abused people, was we all thought we deserved it until finally one day they ran. And so Witten has two charities here in Dallas and Fort Worth for people who are in abusive situations to run. And they run here. And I did a bunch of things with him. And when I would shoot video of it, he would say, make sure you don't shoot the faces of these kids. A lot of times there's people looking for them. I mean, it was just broke my heart. So they told me the story of how they got together. But the Lyle thing was great. All those guys moved him at the dinner table and said, we know you're screwed. We know it's going to cost you X amount of millions of dollars. But we want you here and you'll start and it'll be important. And he believed it and he felt the love and he came here. And with this giant 6'6", 360-pound man who can run and jump telling this story, it was moving. I mean, It was moving. And I had, when he told me that story, I'd known him an hour. And I was, happy that he told me. So that's what got A Cowboy Life, the story started, which are still at acowboylife.com. There's 100 Cowboys and former Cowboy stories, Cliff Harris and Charlie Waters and Everson Walls. And so anyway, it's been really fun and it's hard to give up. And I'm still doing, I took one of the old shows that I used to do called Off of the Helmets, was a live show that I did on ESPN radio. So I took that and repurposed it into a podcast, and it's a 30-minute kind of hard-hitting once a week show now during the off season where I'm updating you on what's going on in the locker room and what they're going to do and what I think they should do. And it's doing pretty well. I mean, we're not spending any money advertising it. And I think, between 5,000 and 15,000 people watch it once a week. So not making me any money, but I have fun and I put on a nice shirt and I put gel in my hair and it's still important to me. And,
well, I'm going to get you some money in Las Vegas because you're not going to believe this, but we have 11 auctions lined up in Las Vegas. You're not doing them all, okay?
Listen, you put me in 3 in a row last year on the first day I was in town, and literally I didn't leave the room after that. I would just do auctions and hug everybody that I missed, and then I go back and lay down on the sofa.
Well, we have a big show coming up. We're going to talk about it, but I have to tell you, this is our 20th year of the NFBC, and you've been at every single Las Vegas live event, even when we did both weekends.
More than you.
You've been more than me because I had to leave one time for my father-in-law died while I was there. It was football at that time. But yes, you've been to more than me, which is hard to believe. When you look back at 20 years of this event, and you were the first person I told about this idea, and we were talking about it and such. We'll talk about that. But 20 years, and you've seen how it's grown from an idea to where we are. What are your thoughts on the NFBC and NFFC?
Well, I don't know that I thought when I first did a fantasy sports TV show, and those who don't know what we did together and how we met, was we were doing a fantasy football and a fantasy baseball TV show in Dallas. And that was pre-internet, pre-everything, right? It was 96, 95, 96, 97. And did I believe in fantasy sports as a method to get into this business and make a living? I really didn't. And I had to study because I'd done a little fantasy baseball. What did they call it? What was the right word?
Rotisserie baseball.
Rotisserie. I'd done a rotisserie baseball team, but I'd only done fantasy football once. I hadn't gotten headlong into it. And all of a sudden I'm on TV and I need to know what I'm talking about and why people do what they do. But I wasn't certain that was the path that was going to lead me to where I wanted to be, but it was. And the number of people that play now doesn't surprise me, but as it grew the first 3 or 4 or 5 years, and I remember being at our conventions and stuff, and we would see people that we liked and respected come into the business and go out of the business because it was tough. People are promising hundreds of thousands of dollars, but not getting enough entries and, playing the come as it were with a lot of businesses. And so that laid on our business, and I'll say our business because it was important to me too. I also remember vividly that 2 or 3 years in a row, you guys flew me to Vegas for the meetings, and I won the fantasy football and baseball shows of the year. And I was so proud of my little trophies and holding it up. And I remember saying, wouldn't it have been fucking funny if I didn't win? Because there are no other fantasy football and baseball shows.
It is the truth.
I was running uncontested, but I appreciate that you guys gave me my little trophies, and I still have them. They're back here. But I couldn't have imagined that the business would turn into what it was. I'm now not surprised, knowing all the technology that came around it and the ease with which you can now be involved in the game, and that guys, metrics guys and smart guys are doing this too, and then it crosses over in a form into gambling, but I didn't say that out loud. And so it became this great thing. But as far as the NFBC and what you guys did, it was always, that didn't surprise me that much, because when we sat and talked about this, what we were talking about were people and relationships, and this conduit fantasy sports was something that brings guys together, not just guys, but in great part guys together. And the way that you guys set it up, the vision that you always had, you always wanted it to be better. You wanted it to look better. You wanted the food to be better. You wanted you wanted us to gather. And I still remember gathering in the crappy Flamingo in places in the sports book with 50, 60, 70 guys. And I was like, this is amazing. And, there have been times in my life I've made lots of money, and times in my life I haven't made any. But I think one of the things that I'm proudest of is I've always been able to be in the moment. So being with you and going through this with you for all these years has always meant something to me. You know, whether we're bitching at each other, whether we're happy, whether we're not, whether we're tired. You sitting and watching drafts for all those years. I'm leaning over your shoulder. I'm like, what the F are you doing? You're in charge.
Online. Yep.
But you cared, and there was no way I could tell you were doing something wrong, because you weren't. You were building a business and a trust. And so does the NFBC or NFFC surprise me? No. The only thing that surprised me is I didn't know the industry would flourish like this. But you've taken full advantage. And, I was in the apparel industry, as you know, right before I got into, and that was an industry that has essentially almost gone under. It was flourishing when I was in it in the late 80s. I made lots of money as a kid. I didn't even know what I was doing. The economy was good. Ralph Lauren pants were selling. That's what I was selling, and I looked up one day, I made $200,000 when I was 22 years old. And I was like, God, I wasted my time in college. I'm a freaking genius. But, it had to do with the economy, and that industry folded, and I watched it, and I wasn't sure that our industry would make it.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to talk about how we first met, and then we hit it off right away. But I think people would be interested in how we first met. So it's actually the summer of 1996. I'm at the National Sports Collectors Convention in Anaheim, and I went, and Upper Deck loved me. And I was the editor of a magazine, and they took me out golfing, and I had a great time. And then the next day, Upper Deck was going to take us to Dodger Stadium. Well, I had a boss who was very, very jealous. And he said, you already went out with Upper Deck once. You go to this Pinnacle party. Nobody wanted to go to the Pinnacle trading cards party. Sure, I'll represent us there. You guys go to Dodger Stadium. I go there, and a guy by the name of Brad, what's Brad's last name? The producer for our TV show. Brad Mum's there. Brad's sitting on the couch. He's saying he's got a fantasy baseball show with Norm Hitchkus. I'm telling him I'm an editor. I've been doing this for 6 years.
Hall of Famer Norm Hitchkus.
Hall of Famer Norm Hitchkus. And he was doing the fantasy baseball show. So Brad asked me if I would fly down and maybe do a couple shows. I said, sure, I'd be interested in that. Guess what? Brad had tickets to the Dodgers game. He took me to the Dodgers game. I didn't miss a thing. Brad brings me to a couple of shows with Norm. Norm liked me. Baseball, they're going to do a 2-hour special in March. Fly me in. I'm on there with Norm. Again, Norm really likes me a lot. And I go, after done, I go up to eat with Brad, and there's this tall guy down on the field doing a promo. The guy's name Brady Tinker. He's my sales guy.
I want to tell you too. That was, if there was doubt in my mind that I could do it.
It happened then.
Because I didn't know, the thing about being good on television or on the radio for any length of time is you also have to be a good writer, right? You have to study, but you have to be a good writer. And I wrote these commercials for these sponsors that I had gotten, right? That was my leg in. My leg in. Brad Mum said, you want to be on TV? There's nothing in your resume that says you can be on TV. But if you'll sell these sponsorships for these TV shows, we'll let you learn. And if God says you're supposed to be on TV, then he's probably the only person that'll put you there. And I sold, $1 million worth of sponsorships in the first 7 months that I was there across the country to
EA Sports.
EA Sports was one of the first people. And I know I forgot what we were talking about. I forgot the story.
Well, you were doing that promo on the field, and you
Oh,
take
that's
one
right.
take
Okay.
after another take after
Well,
another take,
that's-
and Brad says to me, "I'm trying to help this guy out, but it doesn't look like it's going well." And I said, "I didn't meet you at that time, but
No,
I
you
knew were on the
what I
field."
had done is, and that's what I was going to say, is I was a poor writer and I didn't
Yeah.
understand. And I wrote these 2 and 3 minute spots,
Right.
but there's no prompter anywhere. Plus, I probably couldn't have read a prompter because I'd never done it. And I'm memorizing them. So I'm down there and I'm trying to get it exactly right. And I didn't really ever, because this was all new. I didn't realize I could vamp. I could zig and zag a little bit and just sort of keep going. It's what people on live television and radio do. You just keep going.
Yeah.
And I kept stopping and stopping. And the guy that was shooting it, who was also shooting your show, was losing patience with me as well. And I don't blame him. And so I felt that, right? All of that was hitting me. And there were just voices in my head of, you thought you're going to be good at this and you officially suck. You can't even do this. Well, a 3-minute memorization, as all of us know now, is very hard, especially light on, standing on. Had I ever stood on the Rangers ballpark and, no, not even close.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was screwing the pooch, no doubt about it. And it was actually good news that production crew was not back the next year. Hammond Reynolds, really just the guy who propelled me in this business from Fox Sports out of Atlanta and helped both of us.
Yeah.
And made it so fun, came in the next year.
Yeah.
And when they gave me this job sort of out of nowhere, and I did something right. I looked at him and I said, you think I have an ego, and I do, but not about this.
Yeah.
Yell at me, teach me, hit me, do whatever you want to do. I want to be good at this. And he was the break of all breaks, not getting the job, but the job, having someone who was going to teach me.
So what people don't realize is, I came back then and did a football 2-hour special with Larry Weissman and you, and then you and me, along with Jim Knox, did a weekly show called Fantasy Football Weekly on Prime Sports Network in 1997. And I had never been on TV either, but we had a blast. You and I hit it off.
We
and
did.
We made fun of Jim Knox because he was the good-looking host who knew nothing about fantasy or nothing about football.
Or
but
TV.
He would always lead into us, and then we would take it from there, right?
I remember, I won't even tell that story about Jim. But
No, don't do it, Jim.
But
Knox
I like Jim as a person
Yeah.
very much. And Jim had a successful career at Fox
Yep.
Sports Northwest. He
Yep.
really did. But he wasn't perfect for us. And he wasn't a fantasy sports guy. And that certainly wasn't his fault because neither was I.
Yeah.
I just wanted the job so badly that I was willing to bust my ass at it. But that's right. And, did we do it 2 years or just the 1 year?
So we just did the 1 year, and I just want to say that show was well ahead of its time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't any other fantasy football show, and there wasn't another one until really Matthew Berry got to ESPN, Fantasy
Right.
Football Weekly. And so I did it the 1 year in 97, and he asked me to come back for baseball. Well, I had a 2-year-old, and I was flying from Iola to Dallas once a week. It was just impossible.
Yeah.
But you then had people replace me like Goose Gossage, John Kruk, and others. Talk about that.
We got a couple of breaks. It was the next year or maybe the year after that the Prime Sports regionals got bought by the Fox Sports regionals.
Yep.
And that was really D-Day, was Fox Sports, who was coming in to take over this building and going to have at the time maybe up to 18 regionals or so, going to embrace our show or going to toss us out on our ass. And I was in Brad's office when David Hill called from Fox Sports, and he put him on the speakerphone, and I didn't say a thing. And he said, "Your show's not shitty, and we need the content because we're coming in and we're going to be 24 hours, and we don't have 24 hours. So we're going to make you the deal of all deals, and that is you get a 5-year contract to air your shows. You can air 2 shows a week with 3 re-airs. So you can put that show on 2 shows on 5 or 6 times a week, which gave me more sales opportunity on now with a brand of Fox Sports rather than Prime Sports. And so he said, it's a free 5-year deal. And this was a compliment I got. He said, whoever your team is that's selling your sponsorships, if he can keep selling those sponsorships, you can keep all that money too. Now, at the end of 5 years, we may have to renegotiate, but that was the deal of deals. And so all of a sudden I was on Fox Sports to 54 million homes that next year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great stroke of luck. And so we had a little bit more money.
Yeah.
And in that, I got on the phone and found Kruk in the woods of West Virginia. I talked to his mom and she found him. It was a great story because Brad had said, who do you want? We don't have a lot of money, so you're not going to get established players who've done this.
Right.
You can go get players that you think will be fun, that won't be shitty at it. Okay. So for football, I found James Lofton, who ended up being, a real star in the industry. And he lived locally in Plano, so that was great. His IQ was about 180, so it was great to work with him. And then Goose Gossage was an odd call because I grew up a Royals fan. And in the middle 70s, Goose was the closer in New York, and through like 76, 77, 78, the Royals lost to the Yankees, and Goose Gossage in the playoffs every single year to go to the World Series. And I'm like, I fucking hate Goose Gossage, the mustache, the whole thing. And here I am on the phone calling Goose Gossage thinking, well, he'll probably be fun. And I got him on the phone and we called him, and he came for a couple of years. And then we wanted Kruk, and it was hard to find him. But finally his mom answered the phone in West Virginia. And he called me and we flew him to Dallas, and I knew I was going to like him. He was exactly like what you thought he was going to be. Wacky, zany, would say whatever came into his mind, but he had a caring heart. And he flew to town. He's like, I'm not really doing anything. If Brad will add in the amount of money that it would take to fly me here twice a week and put me up the hotels and get me a rental car and pay for my expenses, if he'll add that to what he's offering me, I'll just move here. So I went to Brad and he said, what do you think? And I said, listen, I don't know him yet, but I also know he's a wild ass. So there may be weeks where we go to the airport to pick up John for the show and he ain't there. So if he lives here, I can go get him out of bed or whatever it is. Because we get to the ends of some shows and Kruk would be like, can we hurry this shit along? Springer's on in 30 minutes. We love to watch Jerry Springer. John was so much fun. Goose was so much fun. It was just a stroke like I did one year with Tony Dorsett. We had Bob Golick. Not Mike, but Bob, his brother, who played for Cleveland and who was on that Saved by the Bell. Is that right? Bob Golick? Okay. Yeah. And he was fun. And really, I never worked with anybody on that show that we didn't have a good time. And really, Hammond Reynolds was the key to everything. He made everybody better. He relaxed us all. And I really didn't know. I knew it felt good when I was doing it with him. Didn't know until years later how lucky I was after working with some producers that weren't great and that didn't really care, So
I mean, it was, like I said, groundbreaking show. Fantasy Football Weekly, and nobody really duplicated. I mean, like I said, Matthew Berry, late 2000s, was the next one to get a fantasy show. And even today, it seems like it's underappreciated, fantasy shows and such like that. Any explanation for this at all?
I don't know. I don't get it because I watch some of the fantasy shows on the MLB network and on ESPN where they feel like they have to do bits all the time.
Yeah.
And I guess entertainment's entertainment, and the young crowd likes a bit, but I don't get having to do voices or do Mickey Mouse voices or whatever to make fantasy sports shows fun. But no, I don't really have much insight into that. I will say that every time I run into Matthew, he's very nice. And he says, whenever I stand in front of an audience, I tell them you got this started. And so I do appreciate that. And I like him. I'm happy for his success. And I think he's good at what he does. I mean, he didn't know shit about TV when he got in this business either.
Absolutely.
And so he came a long ways. He was very much a professional and very good. And he made a really good career out of it. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So let's talk about how we started this NFBC thing. So I started the Fantasy Sports Trade Conference in 2000. Like I had you on TV panels because it was important to talk about fantasy getting on TV. And like you said, you won a couple of awards. Nobody against you. Congrats to you. But we did that for several years. You were poor, so you would hang out with me. You would stay in my room or whatever, and that was great. We would hang out and just get along. And so then I had gone to the WCFF in 2002, and I knew this was what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a high-stakes fantasy baseball live event. 2003 is the trade conference. I had told you that my company didn't like it. They didn't want to do it. We both said, why don't we do it on our own? Well, neither one of us had a whole lot of money, so we couldn't do it. I needed a promotional vehicle, which was Fantasy Baseball Magazine. And so I said, I'm going to do it with Krause's. They eventually did it. But you and I were the first ones to sit in that real room, because we were at the Rio that year,
I
and we
remember.
said, this has the potential. We can do this. We can do this. So while we didn't work together as partners, we have worked together for 20 years, and it all started in that Rio hotel room in 2003.
We were certain we could do it. I
Yeah.
remember that. And the
Yeah.
more we talked and the more ideas we had and the more points of view you had as to how the business would be run once we got some funding. And there was pressure on you. You know, I've run many businesses since that day. And when you get funded, but you know that your funding's tight, the decisions that you make with how to spend your money
Oh, yeah.
are huge. You know, I ruined a couple of businesses being too conservative, right?
Yep.
You know, you got to make this money last. Well, if you don't advertise, if you don't market, if
Yep.
you don't communicate, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so there was a fine line that you walked for years. I know
Yep.
you did, you
Yep.
know, budgets and, you know, this and that and the other, and not getting quite as many entries in those first few years as you had planned. You know,
Yep.
you sit down and you drop a business plan and it rarely goes like it's supposed to go. So I remember talking about all that, but I remember we must have talked 5-6 hours. I think we ate
Yeah.
food on the bed. I remember sitting on the bed and just we'd get
Yeah.
up and we'd sit down, we'd get up and we'd sit down and we talked, and I was certain you were right. And I just didn't know how we were going to do it. I just kept thinking, I know I don't have anyone right now who will put
Right.
whatever it was, $1 million into this.
Yeah. You were talking because we were going to do it at the Las Vegas Convention Bureau, or we could get the
Well, that's
Visitors
right. The
Bureau. That's how
salesman
we're
in
going
me was
the
kicking in.
salesman in you.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I know how to run this game. I didn't have
Yeah.
the software or anything like that, but it was a great idea. And I mean, it took off. Like you said, I lost money the first year. So I was always playing catch up with my company. They always wanted me to make that money back and then don't spend so much the next year. So my marketing was never outrageous or anything like that. I always was conservative, and I didn't have the software to say, I know we can double it this year, we can triple it. We just didn't have the software, so it was kind of conservative. But
Mm.
we finally did it. We were at the Rio. Meatloaf was in our first NFBC main event, but the
Fantastic.
first event that you ever facilitated was
Oops.
the 1250 AL auction. I made you the auctioneer. You had never been an auctioneer. You sucked right off the bat, and then we had to have a conversation. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember. I remember. It was then and is now a thankless job. But I did not know what I was doing, and I also remember there were probably 5 people on the phone, maybe more. I remember that I think we had 12 and 7 in the room and 5 on the phone, and I didn't know how to control the room. I didn't know what would happen because I
Yeah.
hadn't done it. You know,
Yeah.
I'd done little drafts and we're all in a room and we're drinking beer and whatever. But with everyone talking over everyone, and then you can't hear the guy on the phone who's trying to make a bid, and I can't hear him. And so we had people on the phone that were upset. And I remember blowing a gasket and basically throwing out several F-bombs and saying, I can't imagine you'd spend $1,250 on an event you might be able to win $150,000 in, and your ass is in Detroit. If this is a big fucking deal for you, then get on an airplane and you should have been here. And I'm doing the best I can, you asshole. And I thought, well, that'll do it. I'm 0 for 1 on auctioning, and my dear friend is going to have to let me go. But
No, we had a nice conversation that I said, just settle down. We have to treat the customers right, but you're in charge. That was what I was
yeah,
saying was you're in charge. They follow your lead. And that has been the case ever since. I mean, there's no doubt you're the best auctioneer in the industry right now. And it's because people respect you. You're in charge. When you say sold and they come in afterwards, that's it. It's sold. Next player, please. And that's how you run a league, right?
yeah, you know, everyone has their best intentions, and everyone there wants to win,
Yeah.
and everyone there, you know, and I kind of try and get ahead of these now with new people. I'll say, listen, you're sitting next to him, and he's going to say 7, and you're going to think he said it before he said it, but it's a chemistry or physics thing. He's next to you. You're going to hear him first. And I don't give a shit what you think,
Yeah.
because he might be your friend, or
Yeah.
you might want him. You might have an agenda, even though you're not trying to be an a-hole. You might have an agenda of you want him to spend that $7,
Yeah.
or you want him to have that bad player, or you just like him or whatever. And I got to where as much as I wanted everyone, and I always wanted everyone to have a great time and everyone to win, you know, it has to go a certain way. And if it didn't, I mean, as I learned, it took forever. You
Yeah.
know, 16-team baseball leagues, if you're just okay at this, will take 6 hours. You
Yeah.
know, it just does. And
Yeah.
if the inmates run the asylum, we're never getting through this. And really the only thing I had to pull from was the next year I went and did when I got invited because of doing this with you to go to Chicago or somewhere and sit in a room and do an auction draft of supposedly famous people and to write about it. Dude, 12 teams. It took us all day. And I remember thinking, this isn't fun.
No,
This is fucking killing me. What is this guy? This should be able to go faster. I didn't know how, but it should be able to go faster.
Yeah.
And so there's a line. I want everyone to have fun. They paid their money. They're there. They want an enjoyable experience. That's why I try and be funny and hit them with stupid shit that I make up. But it's not easy. But you know what? Also, I have made such relationships with so many people that are in those rooms now that I respect them and they respect me. They know I would never screw anybody out of anything. I'm doing the very best I can all the time. And it is my desire that we just have a great time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do get tired. I mean, they've watched me get old, 22 years standing up and doing auctions where there's how many players end up on a baseball board? 65,
Yeah. That's 420 players that you're going through there.
Oh my gosh. Right. So, it's amazing and it's long, and they watched me with back problems that I've actually got a little bit better. Remember all the years I laid on the floor, right?
Yes.
When we took breaks, and I'm stretching, and everyone's like, "What's he doing?"
I do have a picture of you actually when you fell off your chair, rolling back too far. So that was a good one.
That is a good one. Yeah, and it's certainly good for the back.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, we've met a lot of good people, and like you said, the first guy, like I said, was Meatloaf, who was in the first year with us, and then the second year he came back. He did an NL auction. He did the ultimate auction. He was in that ultimate auction where there were two guys on the phone from New York, and it was crazy. But Meatloaf he wasn't even a celebrity with us. He was just a fun guy. He just was one of the guys. He couldn't hear very good. That was his one problem, but what a great guy. And I mean, we miss him right now, obviously.
It was so much fun. I did not know what to think. I was on pins and needles. I grew up trying to get a handful of boob with his song, right? Going to first base, going to second base, going to third base. So I absolutely was struck. And I was struck by, when I met him for the first time, he was rather thin. He wasn't overweight as you kind of felt like he was. And he was a little pale, and he was very hat in hand, and he was very much a fan and wanted to do well in fantasy sports. And I remember getting a picture with him, and I remember saying, "What do you want me to call you?" And I was trying to be funny. I'm like, "You want me to call you Mr. Loaf?"
Yeah.
he goes, "Meat's fun." And that was kind of a dick move on my part, and he took it. And we had conversations, and we met a lot of pretty famous people through things, but Meat was great. And I remember, vividly the year when he came to us and said, I'm going to open the Bat Out of Hell Hotel.
That's right.
And we're doing this stuff forever at the Bat Out of Hell Hotel. And I was like, fucking A, right? Meatloaf is behind us. And, what better celebration than rock and roll and Meatloaf and fantasy sports for the rest of our careers. And it didn't happen, but I remember that. And you know this, but you've probably forgotten. That year or the next year, I won something, and you gave me a ball signed by Pete Rose.
Yeah.
And I was already kind of over Pete Rose. So that year when Meat came in and I did the draft with him, I had that ball in the room, and I brought that ball down, and Meatloaf signed this side, and Pete Rose is on this side.
Nice.
And I have been offered $7,000 for that ball. I still have that ball.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a goof, right? I just sort of was over. Pete Rose was obviously a great player, but I was kind of over Pete Rose.
Oh, yeah.
And it was all surreal. And now this ball signed by Pete Rose on one side and Meatloaf on another is a treasure.
That's fantastic. So it was 2005 when he came, and he told us he was tired of touring. He wasn't going to tour anymore. It was too hard on him. He was going to do a residency in Las Vegas, and they were going to call it like the Meatloaf Hotel or whatever it was. And then he ended up doing Bat Out of Hell 3, and they put him on tour, and he never played with us again. I think 2006 was the last year that he played with us, and he was still stay in contact and such. But he wanted to do that residency, and that would have been so cool. He wanted to host our drafts and stuff. I did the same thing. The first year I didn't bother him for an autograph or anything. The second year, he was having so much fun. He came up to me after the ultimate. He goes, "Greg, you got any more auctions? I'm ready to do one more." I said, "No, Meat, 3 days is enough, And I had this baseball. I said, "Hey, would you mind signing this?" He says, "Give me that ball." So he grabs it and he goes, "To Greg, give me a percentage, Meat." He knew that we were going to take off with this idea.
Beautiful signature and everything too. He was so kind and such. And it's funny, this is life, right? Isn't it? I mean, I thought Meatloaf was going to be around us for the rest of this thing, that we were going to work in his casino. And,
Yeah.
it's one thing I tell younger people: you take people and things for granted, and they come and they go. And I think that's why you and I have loved each other for so long too. It's to have done this for this long.
Yep.
However it's turned out, and it's turned out pretty good. We're so lucky.
Yeah,
We're so lucky.
we are so lucky, and this is why I want to do these podcasts. I want history to be recorded. I want people to know how this all started and what happened and such. We talk about the friendships. Kenny Magner is one guy who Chip was 9 years old when he first brought Chip. Chip's now 28 years old and married and such
Married.
like that. We've seen and we've had the friendships like this. Talk about the friendships not only with our customers, but the facilitators. We've got Kim and Terry and Tammy, right? And I mean, they're just as close to us as family is right now. And you were
Yeah,
with Mike and Dennis, my brother-in-law and brother and such like that.
amazing. It's all such a gift. And Kim and Terry and Tammy came in. When did they come in? What year was that?
So I was talking to Kim about that today. She took over in 2013. So this will be her like 9th year, I think, or 10th year. I had Rex running and bringing my facilitator. People don't realize I can't get help that easily, right? The first couple of years I had like hired help and they didn't even know sports at all, but I was paying them from a service in Las Vegas. Finally, Rex got some of his friends in and he brought Kim in. And then Kim took over and she hires all of our facilitators, and they're the best facilitators in the industry.
And, Kim is an example, and all three girls are great, but Kim might be one of the kindest, sweetest, most beautiful people I have ever met. I'm telling you, she moves me. It's amazing. And all three sisters do. And it's such a blessing. But every time, I mean, she and I have a torrid love affair. We really do. and I only mean that in the kindest sense.
Yes.
She's married to a great man. But Kim and I, just have a great relationship, and it's special for both of us. And Terry and Tammy, I mean, being around them it's a vacation. Getting to see them and go sit and play scary pie gal with them and hang out with them and laugh and eat lunch with them and know that you're going to get mad at us because we got seconds on potatoes and we're taking too long.
Let's go.
Gotta go. We gotta go. Eat the broccoli. That's what you need. But they're phenomenal. And Dennis, I miss Dennis, and I still talk to Dennis, and I still have a picture of you and me and Dennis right here in my office. And he was another gift. I mean, he was older than us and wise in his ways, and just a kind of person that I really had never been around. And then I get Mike, and Mike is a lot like you, but a lot different than you. The dynamics between the three of us, whether it was Dennis or whether it was Mike, have been different, but so much fun. I mean, just so much fun. Listen, cars and marriages and whatever else. I mean, this is all as good as anything. It's as good as anything. Really.
I'm with you. I love it as well. All right. So this is NFBC. We're going to have a lot of fun out in Las Vegas. We're at the Mirage. It's going to be great. Let's talk about some football and some baseball.
Okay.
First of all, congrats on your Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl again, their third title. You have to be on cloud 9 after that season, right?
Yeah, I mean, as a typical fan, which I try not to be, but I am for my Chiefs and my Royals. I don't even know how that happened. Sorry. I felt like that Mahomes and Andy specifically had screwed up the AFC Championship game the year before against Cincinnati. Up 14, going to halftime, looking at a field goal of 25 yards, and Pat says, I want one more play with 5 seconds left. The Chiefs are getting the ball to start the second half. Kick a field goal, be up 17, score to open the second half, and you're going to the Super Bowl. And Pat wanted one more play. And I'm thinking, at best, if they don't score, there's 1 second left. You can't do this. And Bieniemy's over here losing his mind, and he's right. And Andy's like, that's my little boy. He always does everything right. I'm letting him do it. And Andy screwed it up. Sometimes you have to take your little boy and say, sit F down. We're going to win a Super Bowl. And they blew it. And I felt like that the work ethic between the two of them and the talent, that Pat was going to take it personal, that they know they screwed that up. It literally came down to those two. Because that decision and them getting no points there, Cincinnati ran off the field and said in the locker room, I know this for a fact, we beat these guys 3 weeks ago. And guess what? We were down 14 and a half. The defense makes adjustments. We got their ass. And damned if they didn't do the exact same thing. And as you know, because you've had Aaron and you've had Brett, Super Bowls don't just come because you want them to. And a lot of times don't just come because you have the best player or players.
Yep.
I mean, I would have thought Aaron would have been to 5 or 6 Super Bowls, and
Yep.
it didn't happen. I mean, Tom is an outlier for everything that
Yep.
is professional sports. So,
It's very hard to win a Super Bowl. Fan bases
oh,
have to realize that. You
oh,
can have great teams. We've had 30 years of great teams contending for titles every year to win that big game. Think like Philadelphia right now. They feel like shit, right? They
yeah,
lost.
yeah.
It was a great year for them. It's hard to win a Super Bowl. So the fact that Andy and Pat have done it twice is amazing.
Yeah, twice, and they've been what, 4 times? Are they
Yeah.
2-2? No, they're 2-1. And 5 straight home AFC Championship games is amazing.
Yeah.
But I remember losing that Cincinnati game, them losing it, and thinking, man, I don't want to be where Greg is in 10 or 12 years,
Yep.
and we're still sitting on 1 Super Bowl.
Right.
As thankful as I am, because it had
Oh,
been 50 years,
right.
this is hard. People get hurt. I mean, things happen, salary caps, whatever, injuries, bad bounces, officiating. I mean, so much can go against your team. So to get back, and Pat just got better and better through the year. The Chiefs, you could have got over and under on the Chiefs to open the season at 9.5.
Yeah.
How many wins they were going to have, because the Chargers were finally going to be better. Russ was coming to Denver.
Yeah.
Right. The Raiders had their receiver. I mean, the Chiefs, there were pundits who were out there saying on national TV, I think they're not even going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I knew that Mahomes had this special thing. He has an eidetic memory. He remembers everything, and that includes the good and the bad. He remembers everything. You hardly ever see Pat on the sidelines with a tablet, because Andy will say, what happened on Y crossing so-and-so? What did the safety do? And Pat will say, dropped his left hip, but then he held his position and ran straight backwards, and he's not looking. He's just remembering it from memory.
Yeah.
And so I knew that he would try to be great, but it doesn't matter. I mean, he was the MVP. He was great. They still really had a great chance to lose. Philadelphia was kicking the shit out of them at halftime.
Yeah. Right.
So it's so hard. The first one was emotional because I was alive when they won with Len Dawson in 1969,
I remember it.
And I waited 50 years for that one. So that was a big deal, but that was kind of seat of the pants. This one, now he's a veteran. Now he's supposed to deliver. So is Andy.
Yeah.
These are things that make really legends. And for them to have won that against a really good team who played good was so
historic, no doubt. All right, Dusty. Yes, Brady is coming to Vegas. He's got to get his plane ticket tomorrow. He's working hard, 2 jobs, but he's coming to meet everybody because he knows it's the 20th anniversary. That's why. Hey, talk about one thing here. Go talk to the Chiefs, then talk about the Cowboys.
Yeah.
You think that they might sign a wide receiver or trade for a wide receiver, or is that just wishful thinking?
The Chiefs, I actually had inside information today that said they're this close to DeAndre Hopkins, that they're going to they are giving up a second for DeAndre Hopkins. And I'm personally all for that. I mean, what he did this year with essentially no receivers was a miracle. Juju wasn't very good. He wasn't terrible, but your former receiver is mostly terrible. And he missed Tyreek like crazy. Yeah, MVS just isn't very good. MVS, when you watch him run and you see the things he can do, you're like, this guy is an NFL talent, but he doesn't catch it all the time. He doesn't run good routes all the time.
He runs fast.
He runs fast. And he made, I will give him credit. He made some big catches in the playoffs, odd catches here and there behind him. And I was shocked. But overall, they need better receivers. And listen, you wish health on everybody, but who knows how long this will last? And they're right, in the scope of having the best quarterback in the league, the best offensive head coach in the league, and this is a go for it every minute league. And the Chiefs GM is excellent at handling this cap. And if you want to flip the switch, the Cowboys, Stephen Jones, who handles the cap, it's a hard job.
Yeah.
It's a really, really hard job. And he's got, his father who has guys that he loves, and I don't blame him. I really don't. I mean, if I was a Cowboys fan, I'd probably be as pissed as a lot of these people are for the last 26 years. But overall, in getting to know Jerry and Steven, I like them both very much. Jerry's an emotional gazillionaire. Everything he looks at or touches turns to money. Yeah. And he's been so successful. And Steven was drilling oil wells in the ocean when Jerry called and said, I'm going to buy the Cowboys, come run them with me. And they were both like, we don't know what the hell we're doing, but okay, we're going to do it. Yeah. Steven's gotten good at the cap, but he's gotten beat a lot lately. The Zeke Elliott contract was a killer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Jalen Smith contract was a killer.
Yeah.
The Tank Lawrence contract that they're sitting on now has been a killer. They've adopted this. We are a draft and develop team. Great idea in this league with a salary cap. It's a great idea. And the truth is, Will McClay, who builds their drafts and puts their boards together, is a genius, and I can't believe he's still here. And they've had a lot of good drafts in a row. You know, but the bottom line is Steven's gotten beat at some of these. You know, when Zeke held out, they caved in. And Zeke ended up with one of the most bulletproof contracts 5-6 years ago that you'd ever see. I mean, you couldn't get rid of him. There was nothing you could do. You know, you just couldn't. So they're going to. He'll be a post-June 1st cut, and they'll try and do better. You know, but they had some players this year make free agency who probably shouldn't have. You know, there's a really good safety from Texas A&M that they are going to sign. I'm sorry, I'm getting old. Donovan Wilson, who they're going to sign, but they're probably going to end up paying him $5 or $6 or $7 million too much guaranteed money because they didn't do it last year.
Yeah, right.
And there's been some of those defeats for this team that they don't know about, and we talked briefly about this. The biggest defeat that has hurt them financially throughout Dak's career is that Tony got hurt and Dak won 9 games in a row that rookie year, and all of a sudden Dak was the quarterback, and that sped everything up. And it also had something to do with what he's not good at now. And it is relaxing and reading defenses, having a feeling, you know, and I've talked to Tony and he never wants to criticize anybody, but he's like, there are times when he comes to the line of scrimmage and I'm doing a game and I know what the play is. And I know that option 1 is already out. Option 3 is out. He can look at 2, but he probably should just take the check down like Aaron did so many times in his career right away. But he doesn't do it. He stares at 1, which Tony's like, was already gone. With what they did, it was already gone. He should have seen it. But he didn't get the training. And I remember talking to Dak his rookie year, a couple of weeks in Oxnard, California. I said, what's the best thing about having Tony? And he's like, God, I sit in a film room with him and he's Yoda. He knows everything. He sees everything. And I have learned more in 2 weeks here sitting in a dark room with him watching film than I've ever have in my life. And then Tony's hurt. Dak's in, and the Cowboys, everything they told us is out the window. What they told us was, without telling us, we didn't even really fucking want to draft him. We tried to move up to get 2 different quarterbacks in the first round. We tried to trade our first round pick to get another starting quarterback from another team. We did this, we did this, we did this. And then at the end, we had no choice. We fell back on our board. In the 4th round, we picked Dak Prescott from Mississippi State, who has never taken a snap under center in his life. He doesn't even want to touch a center's ass. And now Tony's out and he wins 9 games in a row because Zeke is godlike. The offensive line is unbelievable. The defense was very good. Everything aligned, and they won all those games. If they'd have put Tony back in when he got healthy in week 10 and let him run that string and play the next year, Dak would have learned a lot more. His contract would not have kicked in and paid him nearly as much because they are in a prohibitive position. They have no choice. You cannot win without a quarterback that's at least pretty damn good. And they've got $47 million guaranteed this year and $52 million guaranteed next year, and they have no play other than to extend or restructure. And restructure is what they chose. So he's going to be here a couple of more years. And when you pay a quarterback, and Jerry now is, it's funny because Jerry's more than willing to say this. When you pay a quarterback top dollar, you ain't getting some of the other special players you want on offense. And it is true. You know, it is true. And so the Chiefs are doing it, probably doing a little bit better the way they wrote the contract, but they have Mahomes and the Cowboys have Dak, a wonderful man and teammate and a pretty damn good football player, but it's not the same.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's talk a little bit. Do you think that, real quickly, do you think they can win with the Joneses, though? And can they win with McCarthy? It just almost seems like there's too much top level there, I think, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I don't think the NFC is very good, and it's not getting better. It's getting worse. You know, your quarterback is probably going to be a Jet by tomorrow. And so, you know, they know what the Eagles and the Giants are. They will see them twice. I think that's an advantage too. So my answer is yes. Everything that I have seen and heard from McCarthy here, I personally have really, really liked. He's not great in game, but overall, these players like him. Dan Quinn was a godsend. You know, they didn't have him his first year. They didn't do very well, but Dan Quinn has transformed this defense. You know, the Cowboys led the NFL 2 years in a row in turnovers. The last team to lead the NFL in turnovers 2 years in a row was one of the Steel Curtain teams. It never happens.
Yeah.
So they're going to do what I think is right. And Mike's made a decision. The offensive coordinator is gone. That was kind of long overdue. While he was a talented young kid, he didn't build a system. He didn't build something that had foundation for a Dak Prescott who needed that to be able to count on. What is our focus? What is the type of offense we're playing? He just was really good at calling plays.
Yeah.
But when the game got tight, Dak didn't have this is what we do to fall back on. It was just a different curl route. It was just a different. So this is the right thing. Now, it might not work, but 12 wins 2 years in a row, by the way, they haven't won double-digit back-to-back games since the middle 90s.
Yeah.
So 24 wins in the last 2 years has me believing they're keeping, the most important parts of this team. And I don't know if they can win a Super Bowl, but I think they can win a couple of playoff games. And if you get rolling in a weaker NFC, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Let's talk about your Texas Rangers. They have Jacob deGrom there. What's the outlook for the Rangers this year? And do you like that new ballpark that they have there?
Gosh, I hate to be someone who likes to get press passes and say no, but I like it better than the old one. Old one had more character.
Yeah.
I liked the crookedness of the outfield and stuff, but they kept adding walls to the outfield, which were sponsored. And all of a sudden it became an oven because there was basically no air blowing through anywhere. They took all the air pockets out, and it was brutal about 60% of the games out there, even in the evenings.
Beautiful.
So they had to do something. So they built something with a roof, and that's the best thing I can say about it. They built something with a roof. It's boring looking from the outside. It's extraordinarily boring from the inside. It's echoey. It isn't loud. The food and the hot dogs and stuff that I've eaten when I've been there are shitty. And so it has a roof. So that was needed. So when you come to Texas, please go see the Rangers because it has a roof and you'll be at 71 degrees and that will be nice and get drunk. But I do think that this team has come a long way. Chris Young is a guy that people thought was going to be GM material when he was playing, and I have a spot for him in my heart because he was on both those World Series teams, the one that won and the one that lost. But Chris went to Yale or Princeton or something, and he's highly, highly intelligent. And he knew the last GM very well, and it was kind of a seamless transition for them to come together, and JD to leave. And so I think that they've done a really good job. I don't know how many games DeGrom's going to pitch. He pitched today or yesterday. He threw 26 pitches, 22 strikes. He reached 100 4 or 5 times. I don't even know if that's what I would want at this point in the season. But they've put together a nice mix of veterans. They've got Young and Josh Young and some of the kids that are coming up. Maybe even some surprises. Bubba Thompson may actually play a lot in center field. And so I think that they're around an 80, 81, 82 win team, which will be great. It's been a while for them. And I do think, it'll just tell me how many people get hurt and how many starts you get out of some of the older guys in the rotation, right? Very much like the Yankees, So, but yeah, this team's getting good, and there are some fantasy players definitely on this Ranger team, and it's going the right direction. This team's in good hands.
I mean, Corey Seager is one, obviously. They've banned the shift. In fact, I want to talk to you. I don't know if you've seen any of the spring training games yet, but the game has changed with these rule changes. Forget about the shift. I know it's good. The shift has made a difference, but the biggest rule change that I'm watching is you can only throw 2 times over to first base. So some of these veteran base stealers are baiting them over there twice. They know they can't throw over there again, and they're getting big leads and just taking off. I think we're going to see more stolen bases this year. I think we're going to see the ball in play more this year, and I think it's going to be a more exciting game. What do you think?
I'm a homer when I say this, but the Royals that went to the World Series in 14 and 15 didn't hit home runs.
Right.
And they stole bases, and that first playoff game when they won in 14 against Oakland, they were behind 7-0 and they're stealing bases. And I'm in a sports bar and I'm cheering. And this guy's like, you don't even know shit about baseball. You're risking outs when you're bound by 7. And I said, you don't know shit about my team. If they don't run and aren't aggressive, they won't score 7 runs. So, the risk here is less because there were base stealers, and that was what they did. And they came back and won that game against a really good pitcher. And, that was the team they had for 2 years in a row. It was their T-shirt. I have one. Keep the line moving. So it wasn't 2 walks and a home run.
Right.
It wasn't spin rate at the bottom of the baseball. It was put the ball in play, work the pitcher. put men on base, pressure, put
Yeah.
pressure on guys to make plays, put speed in the lineup. Again, this is old 70s stuff, right?
Yeah.
Put speed in the lineup and make a fielder field the ball and make a decision. Is he trying for two? Can he get this guy? And, it's old school, and it's more fun to watch. So
Yeah.
it's going to, really run contrary to Moneyball. And so many teams have adopted the idea, for the most part, of Moneyball. Why would I have runners run when every third person hits a home run? Just get on base and stand there. We have a really good chance that a ball spinning just right will fly out of this ballpark. It hasn't been as much fun as far as I'm concerned.
No,
it
I
hasn't.
agree with you.
This is going to be great. Everything is sped up. It's way better. I'll tell you, if you're a true fan, because I've been to a couple of games, if you're a true fan, get your ass in the seat, because if you go early for hot dogs and nachos and all that stuff, it'll be the third when you come back out. And it's different.
I was just at spring training. It was a 4-3 ball game. Through 6 innings was 90 minutes.
Yeah.
The pitch clock makes it move, and the pitchers get used to it. The hitters get used to it, and the ball's in play. And it was very enjoyable, and really enjoyed it. So, all right, we're going to wrap up here, but I want to ask you one thing. So, first of all, you said at the beginning that you're going to be there on Wednesday night and join you, and you'll buy some beers. Brady's not buying. You have to buy Brady back beers, okay? So he'll be there Wednesday night into Thursday. He will drink beers. You buy it, but we're gonna have fun. We're gonna drink beers together.
I will entertain you.
It'll be well worth it.
I took Greg out a couple of years ago, and we stayed out way past Greg time.
First of all,
it
was last year. It was only last year you did that to me.
Boy, did we have a good time. We stayed out. Greg time ends about 10:30. And at 1:30 or 2, we were getting up, stumbling home. Matter of fact, one of us fell a little bit down the steps, headed out the back of this place that we were at.
That would be me, definitely.
And we had one of our best Greg and Brady times ever, talking to 3 or 4 beautiful bartendresses taking care of us. And it was a great time.
We let our hair down. Let's just say that. We let our hair down. But
we did.
Yeah, I mean, we're working all the time, and it's hard for me to get away and spend some time. And last year we had everything kind of sold out. And it was like, let's go out together. Well, guess what? This year, almost everything is sold out. We have 8 main event leagues on Saturday morning in this big grand ballroom at the Mirage. It's going to be a great sight to see. All the auctions are sold out, 11 auctions. The Platinum sold out, the Diamond, the Ultimate, the Super. Really, really looking forward to Las Vegas. We'll be there March 23rd through the 26th at the Mirage. What kind of auctioneer are we getting this year? Is this a disabled guy coming off the DL, or in the best shape of his career?
Look at the less jowls, and I'm fit and I'm feeling very good.
Best shape of your life.
I doubt that you will see me on the floor even once doing any stretching. You'll probably hear some bitching after I've done 4 or 5 of these. But I'm spry, and I just got through. I'm in this high dollar keeper league, so as you know, I'm up to date on every player. I have an opinion. I'll tell you if your choice sucks, and it won't be personal. And I will try and make it fun. But we're gonna have a great time.
So in other words, the Hall of Fame auctioneer is going to be there March 23rd.
Back in full throat. Yep. Gonna try and do everything that I'm capable of doing.
I love it. That's what I'm going to pay you for. So, Brady, it's been 20 great years together. Maybe we got 20 more after this, but I can tell you one thing. We are going to have a blast in Las Vegas. I can hardly wait to see you. Get that flight. Yep. Got a room waiting for you with a bed in it even. You won't even believe it. You're going to have your own bed.
Shut up. Oh, damn.
I'm taking care of you this year.
That is fantastic. Fantastic. Well, that's great. Where are we, by the way? Where are we staying?
At the Mirage, in a suite at the Mirage. Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. Beautiful. Great sports book there. We have the Grand Ballroom, which is just like the Bellagio Grand Ballroom with a stage up there. We're going to have the Stage of Champions up there. It's the first time we've ever been at the Mirage, but it's going to be fantastic. So there are 2 Taylor Swift concerts there on Friday and Saturday. So 60,000 screaming teenagers will be in on Friday, and then 60,000 new ones will be there. T-Mobile Arena is hosting Sweet 16 games on Thursday and Saturday. Vegas is going to be a buzz.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
They've never hosted games in Las Vegas. NCAA says, gambling? Let's go to Vegas. So it's going to be a fantastic weekend. So can hardly wait to see you there. Get that flight. All right, buddy?
I'll do it tonight.
All right. Love you. Thanks for joining me tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming here as well. We'll see you all in Las Vegas in about 10 short days.